All right, let's talk about blockchain. You've probably heard the word thrown around everywhere, right? Usually right next to Bitcoin. But what on earth is it really? People call it revolutionary, the next internet. But it's also, super misunderstood. So in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain, demystify this thing, and really get to the heart of what makes it tick. Okay, let's get into it.
So to really get a handle on what blockchain is all about, we've got to first understand the problem it was actually built to solve. And honestly, the best way to do that is with a little story about a village. So just picture this, a small, tight-knit village where pretty much the entire economy just runs on trust. A farmer promises a baker some wheat for bread later on, a hunter promises a weaver some hides for a new cloak. These promises are basically the glue holding their community together. But as you can imagine, as the village gets bigger, it gets really, really hard to keep track of who owes what to who.
So what'd they do? Well, they came up with what seemed like a pretty smart solution. They picked one person, a person everyone trusted, and let's just call him Ledgerman. His only job was to keep one big official book, a ledger, of every single promise made. He was the central source of truth for the whole village.
And hey, for a little while it worked great. But then, the biggest weakness in their system became painfully obvious. Ledgerman, this single point of trust, well, he became a single point of failure. He realized he had all the power. He started charging little fees, taking bribes to, erase a debt here, add a debt there. Basically, he was manipulating the entire economy for his own benefit. The trust was completely shotted. So the villagers, feeling cheated, they got together and had this absolutely brilliant idea. They thought, what if we just get rid of Ledgerman completely? Instead of one guy holding the master copy of the book, what if every single family in the village kept their own identical copy of the ledger? And to make sure nobody cheated, they'd all get together every day to confirm new promises and update their books at the same time.
And that idea, that village's solution of getting rid of the middleman and sharing the record among everyone, that is the fundamental idea behind blockchain. So now let's just take that idea out of the village and into our digital world.
So on one side, you've got the old way, a centralized database. Just think of your bank's records. That's Ledgerman's book. One company, one entity controls all the information. If they get hacked, if they go out of business, if they make a mistake, your data's in trouble. But on the other side, you've got the villager's solution, a decentralized network. Here, everybody has a copy. To change something, you'd have to hack thousands of computers all at once, which is basically impossible. So what this does is it shifts our trust. We're no longer trusting a single person or company, we're trusting the math and the strength of the entire network.
Now, there's a technical name for this whole concept. It's called Distributed Ledger Technology, or DLT for short, and all it really means is a database that's shared, copied, and synced up across a whole network. It's important to remember that blockchain is just one type of DLT. It just happens to be the most famous one by far.
Okay, so a shared digital book sounds great in theory, but how does it actually work? How do you create a record that everyone can see, but no one can secretly change?
The best way to think about it is to compare Microsoft Word with Google Docs. With Word, you write a document, you save it, you email it to me. I have to wait for you to be done. I make my changes, I save it as version 2, and email it back. It's slow and clunky. But with a Google Doc, we can both be in the exact same document at the exact same time. We see all the changes as they happen. There's only one single live version.
And that, right there, is the core of it. A blockchain is basically a Google Doc. But instead of tracking words in a document, it's tracking transactions. Everyone on the network is looking at the very same page, the very same ledger, all at once. So where does the block part come from? Well, a block is really just a digital file. It's a container that holds a bunch of recent timestamped transactions. And once that block is full of transactions, it gets sealed up for good. And this is the chain part, and it's what makes the whole system so incredibly secure. Each new block isn't just tacked on to the end. It's cryptographically linked to the block that came right before it. Think of it like a digital fingerprint or a hash. Every block contains the unique fingerprint of the one before it. This creates an unbreakable chronological chain. So if you tried to go back and change something in an old block, you'd change its fingerprint. That would break the fingerprint link to the next block, which would break the next link, and so on. The entire network would instantly see the broken chain and reject your change. This is what we mean when we say a blockchain is immutable. It's practically impossible to change the past. Now, this idea didn't just appear out of thin air with Bitcoin. The core concepts were actually figured out way back in 1991 by two researchers, Stuart Haber and Scott Stornetta.
They were just trying to find a way to timestamp digital documents so nobody could backdate them. But it wasn't until 2009 that the mysterious figure Satoshi Nakamoto put all those pieces together to create the very first real-world application, Bitcoin. And that brings us to maybe the biggest misconception of all. Bitcoin was the first big thing, absolutely. But thinking that blockchain is only for crypto, well, that's like thinking the entire internet is only for sending email. The technology underneath has potential that goes way, way beyond just digital money. So, you might be asking, what else can you do with this? What can you do with a secure, transparent, unchangeable record book that doesn't need a middleman?
The answer is a lot. The applications are actually mind-blowing. Let's take food safety. IBM's Food Trust uses blockchain to track vegetables from the moment they're picked to the shelf at your grocery store. So if there's an E. coli outbreak, instead of a massive weeks-long recall, they can pinpoint the exact contaminated farm in seconds. It's also being used to create unfakeable digital identities for refugees who've lost their documents, to test tamper-proof voting systems, and even to manage your private medical records.
A lot of these amazing applications are powered by something called a smart contract. And the best way to think about it is like a digital vending machine. You put the money in, the machine checks that the conditions are met, yep, correct amount, and it automatically gives you your soda. A smart contract does the same thing on the blockchain. If you pay the fee, then the digital concert ticket is transferred to your wallet. No person, no delay, just automatic execution.
Now look, like any powerful new tech, it's not perfect. It's not a magic bullet that's going to fix everything. Blockchain is still pretty new, and it comes with its own set of very real challenges we have to talk about.
Let's just look at the trade-offs here. On the upside, you get incredible security and transparency, and you don't have to pay a middleman. But on the downside, some of the older blockchains, especially Bitcoin, use a shocking amount of energy, and they can be really slow. We're talking like 7 transactions a second, while a company like Visa can handle tens of thousands. The good news is, the technology is already evolving to fix these problems. That huge energy use mostly comes from an older system called proof of work, where powerful computers compete to solve complex math puzzles. But newer systems, like proof of stake, are way, way more energy efficient. Instead of burning energy, people just lock up their own coins as collateral. They stake them for a chance to validate transactions. It's a massive leap forward. So let's just zoom out for a second and think about the really big picture here. What does all of this mean for our future?
I think this quote from The Economist just absolutely nails it. The real revolution here isn't digital money. It's the creation of a system that lets people who have absolutely no reason to trust each other build a shared, dependable record together. It's a whole new way of creating trust.
So at the end of the day, the real takeaway isn't just memorizing the definition of a block or a chain. It's about understanding what this new foundation makes possible. We now have a brand new tool for building trust in a world that's becoming more and more digital. So the real question, the question we all have to think about, is what are we going to build with it?